The trailer we did for Kong is really like a highlight of my career. You want your audience to feel something and have an emotional response, whether it's happy, scared, romantic, engaged, and sometimes that's the magic. I am Brett Winn, co-founder of the Refinery. We work with all the major studios, all the major networks, all the major streaming services, and we make movie trailers. A lot of our editors are super passionate. We do give a ton of freedom to do what they want. If there are newer editors to the business, there are people we groomed. We try to bump you up to an assistant editor. And by doing that, they can actually see the secret sauce, right? They can look at a cut and be like, oh, that's the sound effect they put there. Ooh, that's how they cut to the music. So that's one way, is to get in on the ground floor and kind of show passion and perseverance and work your way up. So the fact that we work in an industry where you're basically making a short film and you can go see it in a theater with an audience is a truly unique experience. I am Brett Winn, co-founder of the Refinery, which is an entertainment marketing agency. We work with all the major studios, all the major networks, all the major streaming services. We've been in business for about 15 years, and we make movie trailers, amongst other things.
How did you decide to dedicate your life to film and specifically post-production?
By accident. I went to film school with the intention of becoming a filmmaker, and upon my arrival to Los Angeles, connected with a production company that was doing on-air promotion for FX networks when they launched. And at the time, I was just looking to get in the business. And so they got me an interview at FX when they launched, which maybe there was, 12 people in all of FX networks. And I somehow landed a job as a production assistant in on-air promotions, which I didn't even know what an on-air promo was at the time. Obviously later came to realize that it's commercials for the TV shows. But because it was such a small company at the time, I was brought into all the creative meetings and was able to offer ideas and write some and help produce some of the promos at FX when they launched, which led me to Fox Broadcasting to pursue on-air promotions career as a producer, first a post-production producer, and that evolved into a writer-producer, which led me to a company called Studio City that did on-air promos, a boutique shop where I became a writer, producer, editor for a number of years. And ultimately that landed me more towards a creative director position. And I was brought on to Trailer Park to start an on-air promotions division at their trailer company because they only did theatrical marketing. And that quickly evolved into me getting into theatrical marketing, which I think was my true passion was always movies above TV shows, at least at the time. So I helped launch their broadcast division and then jumped into trailers full time.
What was the first trailer you cut and what was that experience like?
So the first trailer I cut was for a movie called The Hot Chick with Rob Schneider. It was Adam Sandler produced. It was a Touchstone, which at the time was run through Disney, so it was a Disney project. It was the very first trailer I'd ever cut for theatrical marketing. In on-air promotions, it seemed like everything you cut went to finish because you were being hired to do it. But in theatrical marketing, a lot of times what you cut doesn't make it to finish because you're in competition with numerous other agencies. So I didn't realize what a big deal it was to be the front runner for that trailer and ultimately seal the deal and finish the trailer. And I'll never forget, I was actually at a broadcast meeting lunch to pitch new clients for the broadcast division while I was cutting the trailer on the side and got a call from my boss, Tim Nett at the time, that said, hey, you got to rush back to the office because Adam Sandler's coming over. He wants to review the trailer with you. I thought, are you kidding me? Adam Sandler and his team produced The Hot Chick. So when I showed up, Adam was already sitting in my edit bay in the back of the room on the couch, and I met him and his producing partner. We started, noodling with the cut. And in the middle of it from behind me, I heard Adam say, hey, you know who you look like? Fred Savage. You ever get that? And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, yeah, I've been getting that my whole life. Thanks a lot. And I turned back around and all of a sudden I hear him explode into laughter behind me. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, did I just say that to Adam Sandler? But it was hilarious and a great experience. And so,
do you meet high-level talent like that often working on trailers?
It doesn't happen often unless the lead actors or one of them is a producer on the film. So like Kevin Costner is a producer director. And so a lot of the films that he's in, he's actually either producing and or directing. And so if he's in a power position like that, you do have a good opportunity, a good chance of meeting him because he'll probably weigh in on the trailer. So, but most times, I would say in general, that's not the case.
Will you tell me about starting the Refinery and what it is today?
I was an executive at Disney for about a little over a year and decided that the studio life wasn't for me. I actually really enjoyed being on the vendor side. And at that point, had established my career when I decided I really wanted to go into business for myself to start up a shop. And fortunately for me, when I was at Trailer Park, there were two print guys, Adam Waldman and Brad Hochberg, who were running the print division at Trailer Park. And when I left to go to Disney, they actually left to start the Refinery as a print agency. And so less than a year later, when I really wanted to leave Disney, we met up, and they said, "Hey, why don't you come start a AV division at the Refinery we just launched?" And I said, "Well, I don't really want to start a division. I want to start something. I want to be an owner. I have a lot of ideas on how to do it." And so after numerous conversations, we agreed and sat down and partnered up. And so the Refinery AV Attached launched in 2008. When it started, it was me. I had a coordinator that worked with me, and I had an assistant editor who was also my motion graphics guy. So the three of us in a small office in Burbank. And when we launched, somehow I'd wrangled two big trailers. One was for a film called All About Steve with Sandra Bullock and Bradley Cooper. And the other one was Old Dogs for Disney, which was Robin Williams and John Travolta. And so when we started the company with just three people, we had two big theatrical trailers going. And needless to say, it was brutal for about 2 months. I remember working on a trailer. So I was cutting everything myself at that time, writing, producing, cutting, and I had my support team. And I remember working on a trailer for All About Steve. And I remember the client coming into my office. And at the time, there was just a TV on the floor, a desk, and a laptop. But we sat down and we kind of noodled an idea and got good foundation for what the trailer was going to be. And he basically said, "Hey, I need it for a meeting in the morning. Can you do it?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" Keep in mind, this was 10 o'clock at night. So I cut till about 5 in the morning. And again, it was just me in the office. So I had to export the cut, burn a DVD, get in my car, drive it to his house in Los Angeles. He left his window in his car cracked open like 2 inches. And so I slipped the DVD in the car window, drove home, slept for an hour. I got up to take a shower, and he had already called saying, "Hey, I have notes on the trailer." And I got right back to the office to jump back in. And I'll never forget, I was exhausted. And I remember we had a CFO, well, we have a CFO, but our CFO at the time, I was telling this crazy story, and he said, "One day you're going to blink, the company's going to be huge, and you're going to walk down the hall, and some kid who you just hired that you may or may not even know is going to walk by you and say, 'Who's that guy? What does he do here?'" And I feel like 14 and a half, almost 15 years later, we're now between print and AV over 160 people and in a 37,000 square foot office. And I feel like that has come to fruition, for better or for worse.
How does to have just a high level overview of how the trailer industry works and where the Refinery fits into it? When a studio is going to make a trailer, what's the process?
So for theatrical, when a studio is going to make a trailer, sometimes it depends on where you get in the process. Sometimes they only have dailies, but by design, sometimes they just don't have as much to show because they could be in the middle of production. And if you only have dailies on a certain number of scenes, that can dictate what a teaser can or can't be. But typically we'll get the footage, right? Either in the form of dailies or in the form of rough cuts. We'll get on the phone with the client. We'll talk through any direction that they have, any insight they have, try to nail down, do they know the audience? Is this broad? Is it specific? Are there pieces of the story that we should stay away from? Basically, they'll just download anything and everything from a strategic point of view that they have. We usually have a kickoff meeting where we'll bring in whoever's producer, creative director on the project. We'll bring in whichever editor or editors we're bringing in on the project. We'll bring in our motion graphic designers, writer, and our music supervisor. And we'll sit and download, and we'll say, "Hey, hopefully by that point, everyone's seen the film." And we'll start a brainstorm conversation where we'll talk about the best angles, scenes that stood out to us, moments that resonated, if there's any kind of copy that people are thinking of, if there are songs that pop in your head as you see it that capture a tone or a vibe of the piece. And then we'll start to craft the layout, but really everything comes down on us most of the time. We choose the bites, we choose the scenes, we choose the music, we write the copy, we design the motion graphics. A lot of times the main title on a trailer is designed by us, not designed by the studio or by the production itself. unless it's a franchise and there's already a main title that they want to play with. And then it's kind of off to the races. So once we kind of agree on a tone and structure, then the editors take it back and basically craft a trailer. We do give a ton of freedom to the editors to do what they want. But the creative director, hopefully the creative director and the editors are working hand in hand to kind of get through the process. We usually have about 2 weeks to present a first draft of a trailer to a client. A lot of times that's, if there are any graphics, they're all temp. They're just white on black, simple graphics. A lot of times we'll present a lookbook of a graphic design that offers the clients multiple design looks and explorations. And then we send it and cross our fingers and hope for the best. And usually what's happening on the client side is they're getting trailers from anywhere from 2 to 6 vendors at the same time. So immediately right off the bat, they'll probably tweak and or eliminate some of those if they feel they're just not in the right direction. So it really is a bake-off all the time. Now, we're all getting paid to work on it. It isn't a bake-off unpaid usually, but it is a bake-off competition with other production teams and trailer houses.
What is the common budget range that a studio will pay to each trailer house for a huge movie versus a really small indie film?
It's so hard to say. It's such a variable and probably something I shouldn't disclose in a podcast. Yeah. But there's an initial creative budget that usually includes a few rounds of revision. So it includes our initial concept, obviously, our scripting, our graphic design, and usually 3 to 5 revisions, which means they can continually work with the trailer until they get into paying by the hour. So what happens is once they wear out that welcome of like, here's the creative fee plus your revisions, usually around version 4 or 5, we start to bill hourly. And that's where the trailer budgets usually go berserk. Because obviously at that point, the more they want to work on it, the more money the trailer houses make. If it finishes on an early version, it usually means our profit margins are lower.
Will you typically submit one trailer or will you submit several from different editors?
It's interesting. It's in the competitive landscape, there are numerous trailer houses that will actually take the budget for one, but submit 2 or 3 or 4, Obviously you're doubling or tripling or quadrupling your chances of getting something the client likes. But you're also destroying your budget as far as profitability. So it really depends. I mean, we do like to cut at least 2 versions, especially if it's on a larger film. Or something we're super passionate about. And we do that for 2 reasons. One is to double down our chances of winning. But 2 is a lot of our editors are super passionate. And when we find people come out of the woodwork that are dying to cut on this particular film or project, I usually like to let them if we can. Because from passion, usually the greatest work comes out.
Yesterday I met and had on the show Robert Benjamin, a former Refinery editor, and told me his story of how he met you and came from editing UFC promos for 8 years before you gave him his chance that he'd been trying for years to get, cutting trailers. How do you typically, that's a pretty unique story. How do you typically find your editors?
I feel like it's evolved over time. Back in the beginning, it was all who you knew. I feel like a lot of editors, if there are newer editors to the business, there are people we groomed. And a lot of times it was like, hey, my nephew's coming into town. Why don't you meet with him? He wants a production assistant job. That was one way. So you could get in as a production assistant. And usually the route, if you get in as a production assistant and want to be an editor, we try to bump you up to an assistant editor. And the assistant editor has a huge role in what we do. And the fact like they are the hands-on everything that comes in from the features and how they get logged to everything that goes out from all the cuts to client. To the prepping for finish, which is a lot of theatrical projects are finished at outside agencies that are finishing houses, mostly for legal reasons and for security, so that the unfiltered raw footage only lives in one place. So if it's ever leaked, it's only by that vendor. But what that means is if the assistant editors have to prep your spot for finish, then that means they have to go into your timeline and they have to separate the dialogue from the voiceover, from the effects, to the music, and they have to lay it out in a way that's going to be really easy for the finishing people to read. And by doing that, they can actually see the secret sauce, right? They can look at a cut and be like, oh, that's the sound effect they put there. Ooh, that's how they cut to the music. And I find that process is invaluable to people who want to become editors. To live in the assistant editor chair for a while is really a really great play. So that's one way, is to get in on the ground floor and kind of show passion and perseverance and work your way up. One of the other ways we've done in the past that we're probably going to start to implement again is we offered a trailer competition. We put up on a website a previous job that's been done and released. So we provided the feature with the split tracks and said, make a trailer and submit it to us and we'll judge it. And we had a lot of success with that. We've had people coming out of college. We had 40-year-olds in Kansas, but it was a really great opportunity to say, hey, look what this person did without any direction. So you can see, do they have a sense of style? Do they have a sense of pace? Did they put the story together in an interesting way? And I will tell you, I think everybody that's come up from that has gone on to become a full-time editor. In fact, we're working on trying to re-implement that now. Although I will say, Train Robber is a great way to kind of play that game. And then the third way is to just keep your eye on YouTube commercials. And, if you can spot talent, especially in another arena, right? If it's a commercial or a short film, we've had some success going after those people too and saying, hey, come on over. And yes, we have to teach you the art of making a trailer, but if you have great instincts and we can see that, sometimes that's actually the best case scenario and because you're coming into the trailer world without understanding the rules, which allows you to break the rules. And I feel like that was one of Rob's secret weapons, right? Is that he came from the UFC and he had a really great sense of music and timing and editorial style because he had to, right? You're working with the same footage week after week after week. And so his editorial arsenal of trickery was large. And so bringing him over and getting him to just incorporate what he already knew how to do, but with storytelling, what seemed like the secret weapon. And then Rob, to be honest, is just an incredible talent and took it upon himself to say, hey, I'm watching trailers that seem to do a lot with sound effects and sound design and rhythms and cadences. I know I can do that. I can figure that out. And I think one of the secret sauces for Rob, which I don't know if he'd want me divulging, although it's out there, is that when Rob breaks down a film, and we talk about the editors breaking down a film, which is really just choosing their selects, choosing the bites that they really like, choosing the visuals that are the best of the best. Rob would actually go through and do a sound effects pull of like every time there was a unique sound that came from the film itself, a gunshot or a punch or a hit or a car door slam or a cough or a sneeze or a hey or any kind of accents that he could use as part of his rhythmic pass to amplify his style. And I think that really became his secret weapon.
We went deep into his breakdown process and into how he works.
Oh, you did?
With music in particular. Yeah. And he said that the different editors have different breakdown processes. So for him, it's creating 12 or more sequences of, he'll have story, he'll have action, he'll have, jokes, he'll have like throwaway lines or like he had a word for it that I forget. So like a comeback line. It's like after an explosion, if a guy makes like some snarky comment about it, he'll have a sequence just for those. What are the other ways that editors will break down a movie? And what advice do you have for doing it efficiently so that you don't have to go back to the movie when you're cutting?
Putting the time and effort and energy into your breakdown is a big piece of the puzzle. It's something that we constantly work with our editors here because I think sometimes people get thrown a deadline and freak out and just jump in and start cutting without doing the proper breakdown. It's really being thorough. I feel like there's two trains of thought. I'm sure there's more, but I feel like the two main ones are doing what Rob did, which is making sequences where you just lay out, you have like 12 sequences going, and every time you see something you want, you throw it onto that particular sequence. So when you go back, you've got everything organized. The other way I've seen people do it, especially with dialogue, is they'll actually go and subclip every line of dialogue that they think can work so that they can actually do a word find. So if they're looking for a sentence or looking for a story beat or looking for something, they can search it out in their sequence, not in their sequence, but in their project that way.
And they're typing out the dialogue.
Typing out, line by line, not every single line, but the lines that stand out to them, the ones that are good, they'll subclip it and make that line so they can actually do a printout. You can look on paper. It depends, how your brain processes creative, but they can look on a piece of paper and start to highlight lines of like, ooh, this line goes to this line, goes to this line. And then they can start to put it together in their head or on paper of how they want to structure it before they actually start cutting. It really depends on, how are you right brain, left brain? Are you visually stimulated? Are you audibly stimulated? Like what, how does your brain process the material?
In your trailer cutting days, and I know you still edit sometimes when when you have the time for it.
Yeah.
What was your process, your sequence of steps to go from receiving a movie to having a finished trailer?
It's evolved over the years, especially because I don't do it every day now. So when I do it, I have to be really economical with my time because I'm busy running the business. what I'll do is I'll watch the movie, guaranteed I'm going to watch the movie at least twice. Once, I want to watch it without stopping. I want to fully digest the film as it goes and really try to allow myself to be embedded in the film itself without trying to be looking for nuggets or specific things. And, sometimes it's really hard because you'll see a great shot and be like, oh, remember that, remember that. But I really use that first pass to not try to do that. And my thinking is if I can watch the whole film, get through it, shut down the film so I can't look at it, and then make a list of notes to myself, which are what scenes do I remember? What moments stand out to me after the fact, after only seeing it one time? And a lot of times, those are the keystones to what I would put in the trailer because it stuck out to me and resonated in a way that, because I think what happens is on the next pass, when you get into your breakdown and you're actually noodling, you're digging apart every scene, every line, every shot. And I do it more like Rob does, where I'll just make a sequence of like, here's my storylines, here's my funny lines, here's my action shots, here's my big visuals, here's my sound design stuff. And again, I probably don't have the time to do that the way the editors will do it, but I do a fast pass. And then the thing that I've discovered for me as far as economy is I then put all my effort into the music. I really try and listen to everything the music supervisors pulled and or I've pulled and really try and hone in on like what song do I feel like what song's going to inspire me. And it might be a few cues, but what am I looking for? Am I looking for something with lyrics? Am I looking for something that's score? Am I looking for something that's percussive? And really hone in on it, close my eyes, try to envision it as I'm listening to the music. And then I'll actually put the music on the timeline first, which is crazy. So if it's a 2.5 minute trailer and I know I'm going to have a couple breaks or act changes or not, or it might just be one piece of music, I'll try to structure the whole thing out with the music first and get it to time. Get it to 2:30 or less because our theatrical trailers are 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then once I've got the music bed in, if I already know the scenes that and kind of the order of the scenes, then I can start to lay in those scenes, but letting the music be my guide, letting the cadence, music is in measures. So where your downbeats are all the time. And usually what's great about music if you're using measures is that, a measure or two measures is about the length of time that someone can process information. So you've got to get that idea in within that measure or two, and then give people an accent or a break to be able to process that information, then move on to the next thing. And then the other thing that I started doing, well, I did it earlier in my career, but I'm trying to work with the editors, is this idea of like, build it as a radio cut first, meaning turn off all the picture. I think we're too visually stimulated and we're too afraid to break things when the picture's on. But if you turn off the picture and we're only listening to the spot, then all of a sudden there's a piece of dialogue. And when you drop it into the music, you go, oh, I got to make sure the lyric plays. So I've got to compress this line to get in this little space. And you can either cut up the line and only use the pieces of the dialogue you really need, or you can break the line apart with an accent in the middle, or you can find another line. But I feel like having the picture off gives you the freedom to really move the puzzle around, try different pieces in different places, and not be afraid to cut up the dialogue and shift so that it fits in the cadence. Because I have this philosophy that if you close your eyes and listen to a trailer and it sounds great, it's a great piece. And then filling in pictures is the fun part. It's actually the easy part because it's already dictated for you. You already know where the accent points are. You already know where scene changes have to happen. Everything's kind of laid out. And now you can focus on picking the best of the best visuals to represent the story.
How do you avoid the situation of choosing a piece of music that you love, but you realize it's too expensive or there's some other reason that you can't use it?
Well, I would recommend if you do have a music supervisor, hopefully the music supervisor is pulling music that's within your budget. I think people underestimate the value of utilizing a music supervisor in our business, not only in the style and choices of the music he chooses, but he's a very good understanding and relationships in town that he'll know, like, this song is completely unclearable. The artist will never agree to anything. I'm not even going to put it in the pile. Versus this may be tough, may be expensive, but I know the budget. I know this client. Let's go for it. To, pulling a bunch of stuff that's well within budget if you like it.
And so you'll have a conversation with him at the outset saying, these are the kinds of music I think could work. You're setting the direction, and then he's going on a search with those parameters.
Usually, yeah. I mean, sometimes they'll take full direction. Sometimes they'll just go off and run and be like, here, I found some great stuff. I love it. And then you run into this next phase of it, which is like, oh my God, we found a great song, but it's a Crosby, Stills and Nash song, which is not impossible to get. We can get it, but it's so slow. But the lyrics are so perfect. But and then we start playing this game of like, well, can we modify that piece of music? Could we trailerize it? Can we do something unique with it? So then he'll go to the label and say, hey, we have this song. Is there any chance we can get splits? Can we get it with music only? Can we get it with lyrics only? And then we can go to an outside composer and say, hey, let's take this. We have this crazy idea. Let's revamp the song, or let's use the lyrics, but let's build the whole new music bed that goes along with it, or vice versa. I know for Rob's trailer that he did here with us for Kong, we did that. We took it was a Rascal song, and we used it basically in its original form in the beginning, and then composed this epic score based on the chord progression of the song. So it all married together, but it was halftime with epic orchestral version of it with choirs singing, and it was awesome.
On that topic of creating really original music for a trailer, you've told me in the past about creating other original material for trailers, whether that's voiceover with a star or even going out and shooting content. Tell me about that.
Well, I think the interesting thing is, and we run into this all the time, where there's a key element of the story, but in the film it takes a minute and a half to explain. And in the trailer, you've got 10 seconds. A lot of times we will write what we call ADR lines, right? Which is automatic dialogue replacement, is where it came from. But we write lines that didn't exist to help craft the story in a succinct way, because it's a necessary element. And so a lot of times we'll hire a sound alike. So if it's Tom Cruise, we'll get someone to temp it in who sounds like Tom Cruise and blend it in. And if it goes to finish, then a lot of times the studio will get Tom to record the line. And you find most actors will do it. It's funny, today, sometimes they even will be at home and just record it on their iPhone and send it in, and will somehow have to mix it in and get it to match. But obviously, the bigger the production, the more the studio is going to, facilitate getting the actor into the booth and record it in a soundproof environment and try to match the tone and effort and energy. So that happens a lot. The thing that happens less is for us to go out and shoot pieces, because a lot of times the directors are precious and don't want you to shoot anything. They don't want extra footage. But if it's a smaller production or more of an indie film, and we're like, hey, you know what, we really wanted this scopy shot of Los Angeles and it's just not in here. And that can happen on a big theatrical film too. The first thing we'll do is we'll go to one of the licensing houses that licenses footage. So it might be Getty Images. There's a few of them in town, and we might find the shot that we really want and say, can we license this to give an establishing shot we don't have? In recent years, we will go out and shoot that sometimes ourselves, just because it's easier and we can get exactly what we want, and then we become the licensing house. But I would say the chances of that happening are slim to none. The times we do get to go out and shoot is when we're doing behind the scenes pieces or creative content, or additional pieces to support the trailer in different ways. And so sometimes we'll go to a press day and we'll shoot all the talent at their press day. We'll get a room and we'll have funny sketches for them to do, or we'll ask them questions about specific things about the film, or we'll get them to shoot an open for the trailer if we know the trailer's going to drop and it's a Marvel movie and you've got Chris Pratt. Sometimes we'll get Chris Pratt to go and we'll shoot him introing the trailer, like, hey, I'm so excited to share the latest Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, and make a few jokes. And that's become, over the last few years, those press days and getting the talent to do things that are a little outside the box and creating these digital custom content pieces are becoming a bigger and bigger part of the puzzle in marketing, where it's not just about the straightforward theatrical trailer, which people do love still, but people are really responding to what we call these like snackables, right? And with the popularity of TikTok and obviously and Facebook and Instagram, where people want short bursts of fun, creative, cool content.
What makes a great trailer? What are the fundamentals?
So for me, I think, everything starts, you want your audience to feel something and have an emotional response, whether it's happy, scared, engaged, romantic. The 5 elements to me are really a well-crafted story. You really need to be able to craft the story in a way that I understand everything. I don't need all the information. I don't need all the pieces of the puzzle, but when the trailer's done, I at least have an understanding of what you're trying to do in the film and what the film's essence is. So great storytelling. Music to me is huge, right? A great piece of music will really set the tone and evoke emotion. And I think that and make it memorable, right? So a great piece of music, and it doesn't have to be a song; it can be a score, but something that's going to set the stage and really draw you in and capture you. Motion graphics and design, I think the look of something that you can create that's unique to your own piece, the way you use graphics, is it integrated? Is it just a border? Is it a full screen takeover? But you can really create a color palette and a tone that hopefully will stick out and pop to people. Editorial style and prowess, what are you doing with the cut that's making it stand out? Is there a unique cadence or rhythm to the spot? Are you playing sections backwards? Are you doing picture in picture? Or is it just so well crafted and so well edited that I don't even know it was edited? And sometimes that's the magic. And then the fifth one, which is funny because lately I've called it like the 4.5, because a lot of trailers today don't actually have copy. Copy is that last piece of the puzzle where if you can create um, a clever piece of copy that is simple, succinct, tells the story, but does it in a way that's memorable or clever, and it's something people remember after the fact. I think, if you can get, I feel like if you can get one of those elements, you've got an okay piece. If you've got two of the elements, you've got a pretty good piece. If you've got three things going for you, it's probably a really great piece. And if you've got four to 4 or 5, you could be in an award-worthy position. And so I think the struggle is to, how do I make a piece that really does check all these boxes? And it's not easy.
And so what's an example of one that you guys have made that you think does check all those boxes? And I'd love to hear you talk about that trailer.
The trailer we did for Kong is really like a highlight of my career, I think. And I love that. I think there was a review that came out in the trades that said, I love this trailer so much I want to marry it, which is like that I'll ever get a review like that for one of our pieces again. But I feel like that trailer, and Rob, I mean, kudos to Rob because it really was his brainchild. Not only, I mean, with Rob, everything he did, it just had a great creative style and technique to it. So you check that box off. But the storytelling at that point in the career, they weren't leaning into the fun aspect. Everything up to that moment, because there were 2 trailers that came before our trailer, and they were pretty serious, selling it like a hardcore action film. And I feel like we brought in this levity to it, that it wasn't a joke, but it also was like, this is going to be a fun ride. It's not just trying to take itself too seriously. So I think that element of the storytelling really sealed the deal. Music, I mean, crafting that song where it is one song all the way through, but the first half is the original song. And then Rob modified it to sound like it's coming out of a mono speaker as the helicopter is going down, which is insane. And then they crash land and the back half of the trailer starts, and now that song is evolved into a full orchestral piece that we custom created. So that was awesome. The graphics definitely pop out. They're simple in nature. The copy was simple and clever, and it was just really a fantastically designed piece. I also really loved our Ford versus Ferrari trailer. We fought like hell to get a Rolling Stone song into the piece, and I feel like it really, it was period correct, and it set the tone and set the vibe and just had this angstiness to the song that drove it to a new place. And I think, the storytelling was what we really had to craft, because believe it or not, it's a complex story, and whittling it down to a relationship between 2 men out to win by any means necessary was great. I think in that case, the copy was super simple. The graphics were super simple, but it didn't really need anything more than that. And then the editorial style and prowess, in some places I feel was crafted really well and had some great accents and moments, and in other places it just flowed in such a way like you didn't even realize it was cut. And I feel like that's that example of, it's cut so well you don't even realize it's edited, which no one should ever underestimate that.
How does an editor know how much of a movie to give away? And so how does an editor maybe mitigate their impulse to not give away a lot and really just get you excited about it while working with a client who maybe has certain story points that they need to communicate?
I would say I think people at the agency side will always err on selling less, because we believe in the product. We don't want to give away everything. I think, the comment that we get from our friends and family on our work so often is, why did you give away everything? Which is like a knife to our heart, because we're like, no, that's not our intention. But I think what happens sometimes on the studio side is that they want to guarantee that the trailer is effective. And so they'll run testing, market research on the trailer itself. And fortunately or unfortunately, the only way you can really test A trailer is like, how much information did you get from it, right? What do people remember? How much of the story do they understand? And so sometimes a higher testing trailer means we've actually told more of the story so that you understand it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that was our intention. Today that happens less, I hope. I think clients are a little more precious with stuff. And there are some filmmakers that will just purposely not give you the last reel of the film. So the reel might be broken up into 15 to 20-minute sections, and they'll just never give you the last reel. So you don't even know how the movie ends when you're working on it.
What's an example of that?
I think Spielberg does that a lot. Recently, Cameron would do that from time to time. Yeah, I think their feeling is, I don't want to give away anything that happens in the last act of the film, so I'm just not going to give it to you. Even though there may be amazing shots that
Yeah.
don't sell the story, but they're just amazing because they're the last reel of the film.
So if you were communicating to someone what it is that makes being a trailer editor an amazing career, what would you tell them?
Look, it all starts with your passion. I mean, you have to have a passion for movies or TV shows to begin with. If you're someone who doesn't go home and watch TV or watch the movies or love going to the movie theater, this might not be the right job for you, because that's all you're going to do all day, every day. And not only are you going to watch it once, you're going to watch it 100 times. So I think it really is like, know yourself. If this is a passion of yours, so that's the first step. And then the second step is really determining if your passion is long form or short form, right? Do you want to actually be the filmmaker making movies, or you love marketing? Do you love trailers? Do you love the cramming something into 2.5 minutes and having this project that may only last a few months versus a film that may last years? Because it doesn't always translate. If you start your career as a trailer editor but know, like, hey, I really want to make films or edit films, it doesn't mean that you could spend 10 years making trailers and then someone's going to hire you to cut feature films because you cut trailers. And vice versa. If you're a feature editor and all of a sudden you want to become a trailer editor, you may have to start at the bottom again. And so really having an understanding of, like, is this my passion? Do I want this because it seems like a sexy career, or do I want this because this is what's going to make me happy? I do believe if you wake up every day and do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that that's what I tell people, no matter what job you're getting into, but specifically this job, because the hours can be grueling. You may watch something 100 times, and it's not an exaggeration. A lot of times when a film comes out, we are kind of sick of it. It's like we've been there, done that so much. We know this film inside and out, 17 Ways from Sunday, and we're just ready for the film to get released into the world.
Your work is being seen not only by people who watch that movie, but by literally anyone who's watching TV, who's going to the theaters. That kind of exposure must be pretty exhilarating.
Yeah, I still, I've been doing this a really long time. I don't want to say how many years, but every time we finish a trailer that's in the theater, that actually plays in the theater, which, nowadays with the internet, you get way more views, right, when your trailer drops on YouTube than when it does in the theater. But I still love going and sitting in a dark theater, because you can't go anywhere. You're fully encompassed. You're hearing it the way it was designed. And to sit with an audience and actually get real-time feedback if they're laughing at the right places or gasping at the right places, or, people do make little snickers after the trailer all the time. And so be able to lend an ear and say, oh my God, that looks awesome. Or, sometimes you're like, oh, that looks like a piece of shit. And you're like, oh. But I think there are very few times in a marketing, if you're into marketing, there's very few times you get real-time feedback. And so the fact that we work in an industry where you're basically making a short film and you can go see it in a theater with an audience is a truly unique experience.
With that, what you just mentioned, all these trailers being, viral hits on YouTube, would you say this is a better time than ever to become a trailer editor? And what do you think the future will look like for people pursuing this career?
I mean, I think it's an excellent time, not necessarily because of the internet per se, because of the marketing, but I think, the amount of material that's being produced on a regular basis. And I think you gotta, the idea is, it used to be, oh, trailers are for theatrical films that play in theaters. It's like, well, that's, trailer could be for a series, a trailer could be for a film that's on a streaming service, and I think that there's so much content being produced. I mean, there's way more content being produced than any one person could ever see in their lifetime. Even if they stop making anything new today, you'd never be able to see everything that's out there. We're needed more and more and more to somehow cut through the clutter and to get people engaged and interested. When it used to be, there might be 12 films a year coming out, and today there's, 500 films coming out. A, there's just more work to be done across the board at every level. And B, you have to work harder at cutting through the clutter and making the project you're working on pop in a sea of projects that come out every day.
What is the art of the trailer course?
So the art of the trailer course is a one-on-one with me where we can go through some of the things I discussed one by one and really break down every element of what I think makes a great trailer and kind of give you some insight into the hows and whys we do what we do and some of the ways we do it and things to look for as you're building your career. And hopefully, if you get through the course, can set you up with an interview or a chance to meet someone in the industry, either myself at Refinery or someone like it, and really give you a kickstart into the business. So I think Train Robber is an excellent resource. I don't think there's anything like it, especially in the trailer world. And I think could really open doors if that's where your passion is.
You did an amazing job teaching that. We spent the day filming with Brett and have more than 4 hours now of content of him teaching everything from how the industry works to the fundamentals of a great movie trailer in much greater depth than we were able to cover in this podcast, and some trailer analysis, breaking down 5 different trailers and identifying what it is that works so well in each for very different trailers for very different types of movies. Brett, what would you say is, for someone who is embarking on this career, wants to be a movie trailer editor, what are the skills that they should be focusing on developing, and what are the qualities that they need to succeed?
I mean, first and foremost, obviously, you're going to have to know the software, right? So you're going to have to know Premiere, you're going to have to know Avid, Final Cut. In a perfect world, you would know all 3 because different shops use different software. So, that's the technical aspect of what you need to know. I would say a great understanding of music, not that you need to be a musician, but an understanding of how music works. I also think an understanding of story structure. If you've never taken a script writing class, I think it's invaluable. And you can even, take the abridged version. But understanding a typical 3-act story and how that works is so huge in being able to condense a story down to 2.5 minutes. Obviously becoming a great storyteller, understanding the software, having a great understanding and grasp of music and how it works. We can't teach people to have good taste in music, but hopefully, we have helped there. But, I feel like the music is really what defines you as an editor. I think your choice and your style comes through in the types of music you choose and how you use the music. I think you don't have to be a graphic designer, but having an eye for design of things that work and what could work. And I think there's an overall, you have to have a personality that is open to experimentation. And you actually have to be open to trying something and doing it wrong over and over and over again until you finally get it right, and having the perseverance to not give up in that struggle, because I don't know many editors who quickly hack something together, throw it on a timeline, and that's what finishes, right? I think it's about the revision process, about trying something and being honest with yourself. Does that work or does that not work? And if it doesn't work, which a lot of times it won't, being open to recrafting and redirecting and re-editing. I mean, editing is re-editing. So having the endurance to be able to do that and always stay positive and know that there's always a solution. I think too many times we get, we'll build a piece and soup to nuts, you have a reason for why you did everything. Everything's in the perfect place. And all of a sudden a client goes, yeah, that one section doesn't work for me. And I think you have to be open to that. You have to be open to the idea of like, oh no, they're going to blow up this thing I worked so hard on. And now I've got all these hours ahead of me that I've got to recraft it and redesign it, try something new. But, I say this to my staff sometimes, version 1 of a trailer, when it's your creation, you're the chef. You make whatever you want to make and you make it the best way you can. And a lot of the revisions after that process, you're the waiter, where it's all about customer service. It's all about trying to solve your client's issues, but doing it in a way that you can still be proud of, right? So if the food's not cooked the way they like it, you have to be open to their suggestions on how to recook it and offer them other choices if you don't agree, or at least show them what they're asking to see. Plus, here's another way we could do it. And I think, positive mentality of like, there's always an answer, there's always another way, there's always a different solution. In the world of trailers, a trailer can be put together a million different ways. You could hand the same project with the same instruction to 100 people and you'd get 100 different trailers. And I think you just have to be open to that idea of like, be true to yourself, make what excites you. If you have to, what's going to get you to see this film? And it has to excite you, because if it doesn't excite you, then you're not doing it right.
Well, that was great. Thank you, Brett. Would love to chat again down the road, and really excited
Absolutely.
to launch the course in the near future.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for people to see the course. Hopefully they like it. Fingers crossed.
Me too. This is great. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Nick.